I mean, he's going to take the second mouth and rip it off. Something like that, I imagine. And hi guys, and welcome to Gear Reviews and to this versus video, Alien versus Calvin. So guys, I wanted to do this video for quite a while. It was my idea because I was fascinated with the movie life, and of course, who is not fascinated with all the Alien movies? Well, at least most of them. But the franchise as a whole, the whole lore, story, everything about Alien pretty much. And Life is a movie that, if you haven't seen it before, I think that you should see it first because I'm going to talk about some of his powers, so it's kinda spoilery, you can say. At least I haven't seen a comparison between these two, but immediately when I saw Life, I was like, oh my gosh. Well, not quite in that, in that way, but I was like, oh wow. I was like, oh boy. Okay, I was not like that. Okay. So I was like, okay, uh, who is gonna win? If we compare Kelvin with Alien, because Kelvin is super original to me, and I've never seen anything like that in modern times. I mean that, sometimes we do tend to think that a lot of the things that are already written, characters that are most original are already created. In the case of Kelvin, he surprised me exactly because I think that he is pretty original. Or once again, at least I haven't seen anything like him before. And because he's so unique and so freaking dangerous, I was like, well, this is perfect to compare the two. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to read a bit of a fandom page about Kelvin. Thank God for such pages, because they do combine all of the information about particular species? Yeah. Okay, so Kelvin is the name given to the Martian alien and main antagonist of the 2017 movie Life. The species is believed to have whipped out all of life on Mars, therefore making it an apex predator. Each cell belongs to Kelvin is a muscle, a nerve, and an eye at the same time. Like, this is freaking amazing, guys. It is semi-intelligent. Kelvin is able to quickly adapt to its surroundings. Kelvin was presumed to be a species whom lived on Mars and dominated the Martian soil in a hibernation state. The crew wake Kelvin up. Its first priority is clearly to grow, second, ravage the crew. Okay, so Kelvin is first discovered as a sample of a dormant organic tissue. When provided with simple nutrients and water, it begins to grow into a multicellular form. In this state, it grabs Hugh's finger forcibly while being examined. Hugh is able to free himself from the creature's grasp, and soon after Kelvin enters another dormant state, Hugh attempts to coax Kelvin into awakening by administering a series of electric shocks. Kelvin reanimates and attacks Hugh's hand, breaking it. Kelvin then uses the broken glass of the electric pot to escape its enclosure. Kelvin makes its way through the lab and enters a container where a lab rat is being kept. When the frightened animal bites Kelvin, Kelvin attacks it, consuming the rat and growing larger. Upon seeing this, Rory enters the lab and rescues Hugh, but this results in him becoming stuck in the lab with Kelvin as David initiates containment protocols to prevent Kelvin's escape. Rory unsuccessfully tries to kill Kelvin with a flamethrower. Kelvin enters his mouth and devours his insides before emerging even larger. The resulting fire causes the emergency vents to open and Kelvin is able to escape into the station. Okay, so that is pretty much like a summoning, to sum up how Kelvin became what he became. And if you see in the movie, we start to observe how he is curious at first, but then attacks immediately when he sees that he can actually do that. So what is interesting here is that Kelvin once again is a muscle, his whole body is also an eye, and it's a nerve cell. So he's able to feel and see and do with all of his body, and the more he eats, the more he becomes bigger, stronger, and more complex in terms of how he looks and what he can do. And he does learn from his mistakes as well. And through the course of the movie, we also see that he can survive in out of space just for a bit. I mean, the other people on the crew were like, well, he can probably survive, but not for long because he is going to need oxygen at some point. So he is able to absorb oxygen through his skin, so to speak, to his surface of the skin or whatever that is. And then he can hold on to that and live with that for a period of time before he dies. So the idea was that if they can vacuum parts of the whole station, I mean most of it, they can literally deprive Kelvin of the oxygen, and with time he should die. But of course that's not what happened. And we of course all know what the alien is, the Xenomorph. We know that they have exoskeleton that is like a silicone. Basically, it's very rough. They can also survive in pretty rough conditions. Well, to a point. They have mouth within their mouth. They're always born from the host. They're very fast, and yeah, they're very fast, very strong, and they can eat you. Yeah, it's terrible. So aliens pretty much is an exoskeleton creature that's extremely dangerous and hunter orientated. When you put Kelvin and an alien in a station with humans, and if you put one to go and kill everybody and then you put the other, I'm not sure who's gonna win because they're both very efficient in moving fast and killing. But in the situation of the space station where Kelvin was, there was no gravity because the station was like a modern station, not something from the future. From the future. I just love saying that in a SNL type of way. So it's not like that. It's if there was gravity, I kind of doubt that he is gonna be that fast. I mean, he is fast. Kevin is fast, but he's not gonna be as fast, I think, as the Xenomorph. Now that is if we compare, of course, who is going to kill the humans faster. So on that, maybe I'm going to give it to the Xenomorph. Both are definitely going to kill the humans. But yeah, in terms of who's gonna win in the fastest way, I think it's gonna be the Xenomorph out there. Now, in terms of the topic of this video, who the heck is going to win if you put one against the other? I think, guys, that, I mean, you can, of course, let me know what you think in the comments, but I think that in this case, definitely Kelvin would win, actually. And why? Because if he gets into Alien somehow, if he gets into his mouth, I'm not sure how Alien could defend himself effectively against Kelvin, because Kelvin, even if Alien tries to chew him up somehow, I don't know, I mean, Kelvin is so fast, he's gonna just go up into his throat, and then maybe he's gonna run into the second mouth, and the second mouth is going to be like, hey, what's that? But Kelvin's gonna be like, hey, come here, I'm gonna eat you, probably. I mean, he's going to take the second mouth and rip it off. Something like that, I imagine. So I think that as soon as he gets into Alien, he's pretty much done. I mean, into the Xenomorph. But if the Xenomorph tries to hurt Kelvin, he can do it, I think, with acid. He can actually manage to hit him with that. But there's gonna be, I mean, definitely a fight. But I think that the only way that the Xenomorph could win if it's really through the acid. Because Kelvin here is so slippery, I'm not sure how the Xenomorph could even grab onto him. He has that very long tail that looks like a skeleton from the dinosaur era, basically. Spikes, a lot of spikes. Maybe he can, put that through Kevin like a fork. That's interesting, actually. If he does that, and then somehow manages to grab and hold on to him without Calvin slipping, maybe, just maybe, Alien could like just spit in his in his face and melt him. The other parts of Kelvin are able to survive on their own, and Kelvin just splits into a few other little Kelvins. Yeah, he can still enter the Xenomorph's mouth and kill him from the inside out. So yeah, I think actually when I start to reason with this versus, I actually discovered more things that I thought that I would about what the Xenomorph can actually do against Kelvin here. But it's going to be a bit more dangerous situation in a way if there was also no gravity on that ship. Let's say that they are supposed to be fighting on a ship, because then Kelvin could just fly everywhere, and of course the Xenomorph could just grab onto the walls and propel himself or herself forward, backwards, and all of that. And it's gonna be kind of hard to for Kelvin to just grab onto one of the legs or the arms, if you can call that arms, of the Xenomorph and just break them. But he can actually do that also because he is all muscle. We saw him how he almost broke a glass just with his squeeze. If he can grab on to something very well, he just breaks bones and even instruments and all of that. So it's interesting. But okay, let's think about it one more time. Okay, let's say this just reminds me of how when we compare Batman with Superman, if Batman prepared, then Superman's gonna be toasted, but if Superman decides to just move a bit to the side and in a way that Batman will not ever see him, I mean, if the intent of Superman is to kill Batman, he can just do it in a split of a second. But this argument that, Batman could prepare and all of that, so yeah, of course, if he prepares, there's a chance, but just depends on the situation. So in this case, I also think that objectively it's definitely depending on the situation, but Kelvin can kill the Xenomorph, and the Xenomorph maybe can kill Kelvin. Again, I'm not that sure that he actually can. He has to grab him somehow, or stick him with his tail and then still grab him because he's so strong. I mean, Kelvin is so strong, he can just roll around the tail and just break it. That's something that he also can do. Or he can roll around his arms if the alien tries to grab onto him. But if alien could be as fast as possible, just grab him and immediately spits, maybe that's gonna kill him. Maybe. Again, given that Kelvin's not gonna split into little Kelvins. In that case, especially if there's no gravity, the alien's gonna be toasted. So I'm gonna say Kelvin, but again, I really think that it's still open to debate. But I would love to hear what you guys think about this, because it's super interesting, I think. So it's fun to talk about it and to compare it. So let me know what you think in the comments, guys. By the way, you can check out my Patreons. I made 3 new tiers there. And if you're interested in any of that, or you just want to support me, that's an option. I have only 3 Patreons. Come on, people. Come on, people. So yeah, please consider that. And that is it. Thank you very much, guys. Please share. That's very important. Rate, comment, and subscribe. Until next time with me, Gary G Reviews.